And welcome into the Tuesday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning. We are presented by Green Ventures Landscaping, outdoor patios, landscaping design, lawn maintenance, and more. Visit greenventureslandscaping.com. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home with the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Joe Rexrode, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing okay, thanks. Trying to decide how much trash I want to talk to Paul Kaharski this morning. But let me just tell you that, big win for Nolensville over Ravenwood, which got a little ugly late. It got a little intense. It's a rivalry. It's the first of a 3-game series, by the way.
Oh, okay.
So,
we're talking on the baseball front, by the way.
We're talking about the baseball front, yes. So last night, I texted Kaharski as we're kicking their butt, and I said, Monday is for nights, which I thought was kind of funny. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You get it,
I got it.
Thank you. Because we always say Fridays for nights. And then let's see what he says, aren't you a program that's a farm club for CPA? And then I was like, well, you should feel even worse. That's true. Anything can happen in a single baseball game, right? So he was already like curling up in a ball and crying himself to sleep.
So what you're telling me is this could be pretty spicy tomorrow when Kuharski gets in here.
Yeah. It could. We may have a knockdown drag out about Nolensville Ravenwood baseball.
I look forward to it. I think that'll be awesome.
Yes. I'll try to contain myself. There's a lot of stuff that went on last night that and Kaharski and I are arguing over a lot of details right now, but I'm not going to get into them.
Okay. All right. Well, I look forward to hearing about those, maybe either on or off the air. We'll look forward to that. Ian, how are we doing? What's going on?
Good morning. It's about as boomer dad as it gets about there, huh? Fighting over
pretty much.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah. Yes,
but,
it is.
Yep. Doing good. Thanks. Yeah, I didn't watch too much last night. I'll be honest. A little bit here and there. And it was nice outside. We were outside playing and doing that kind of stuff. But a couple more days closer to the draft. So should be fun. Thanks. Happy Tuesday, folks.
I think the Pittsburgh Penguins might be in some trouble, and apparently Porter Martone's going to win the Conn Smythe. So that's always fun, Joe.
Yeah, he's pretty much the best player in the league. He leaves East Lansing. He takes his humanities final exam and just goes in and just starts destroying the whole league.
So he scored last night, and I got a buddy of mine that's just a massive Preds fan. Like keeps up with all the prospects, keeps up with all the draft picks. And as soon as Martone scored last night, he just sent me a text message. All it said was, "You've got to be effing kidding me." And I was like, "Sorry, buddy."
Yeah.
Like Brady Martin's going to be good. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. Vingan's already tweeting things too. So Vingan, who delights in the Preds misery per the YouTube chat.
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
That's what I hear from the YouTube chat.
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot of stuff going on today. We have Joe Rexrode's last beat writer mock draft that we're going to get into in the 7 o'clock hour, which I highly look forward to. We got people throwing out dates for the Nashville Super Bowl, so we'll get into that a little bit later in the show as well. Alex Doherty from the Tennessean will be with us at 8 o'clock, and we will go through the Predators locker room cleanout day yesterday and some interesting stuff that was said, and we will get into that more here in just a few minutes. But Alex Doherty will be with us at 8 o'clock. And as always, taking your thoughts at 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Well, Joe, let's start there. The Predators cleaned out their locker rooms yesterday. They had their end-of-season meetings. And, everybody calls it locker room cleanout day. I mean, I don't know what they do in the locker room. I'm sure that they clean something out in there. But I think for the most part, they're not in the locker room. So I think they're out there, meeting with coaches, meeting with front office people, and coming up with some sort of plan this offseason. But they also had to meet with the media yesterday, much to their delight. And I thought a few interesting things came out of yesterday, and we're going to get into some of them a little bit later in the hour with Jonathan Marchessault, who had some pretty open comments yesterday, which I thought he might heading into it. But I think the big thing on everybody's mind, kind of looking at yesterday's conversation, was what's kind of the message that you guys are being told about where this is all headed when there's a general manager that has not been hired yet that's going to come in and lead the organization, right? I mean, we don't know who that's going to be, and I don't guess we know for sure exactly what all of their ideas are going to be. But is there anything that you could glean from those conversations that you had with Barry Trotz and management that's currently in place? And this is what Steven Stamkos had to say yesterday as a part of his end of season media availability on that front.
Steven, how are you feeling about, I mean, obviously you mentioned it last week, there's a lot of uncertainty with general manager and what's going to happen, and things have not gone to plan to this point. How are you feeling about where things stand at the moment?
Yeah, again, obviously, that process is ongoing with the new management, team that's going to be assembled here. And I think we just, we had some meetings today, and I think the message was, the expectation is still to be a competitive team and to push for the playoffs. So I don't anticipate any huge changes, right? And we've kind of talked about, is there going to be a rebuild, this, that. I think that's probably safe to say not going to be the case. I think we all want to be part of the solution. Like I said, we saw it for 60 games or 55 games of what the process can look like, and the integration of some of the younger guys and the veteran guys, pulling their weight, and obviously the goaltending that we have here is something we can build off of. So there's going to be some changes for sure, but I think the overall message that was portrayed to us today was, let's have a great summer and let's get off to a really good start next year and push for the playoffs, because that's what every team's goal is at the end of the year.
So that was Stamkos yesterday. Joe says, we've had the conversation around here as to whether or not there's going to be a rebuild. And I think the phrase he used there was, I think it's safe to say that that's probably not going to happen. Which, on the one hand, Joe, I mean, if you're a Predators fan, you hear that and you're like, well, how could you possibly really know that until the general manager is hired and they come in? On the other hand, as a couple of us talked about yesterday, after the press conferences, is like, as part of this general manager hiring process, are you looking at it and saying, hey, like, this is kind of how we're feeling about where the organization is, where things are going. And if the person, that they end up hiring doesn't, I guess what I'm saying is, are they going to hire somebody who doesn't align with that, right? Like, if somebody in this candidate pool looks at him and says, yeah, I think this needs to be just absolutely torn down to the studs, which we've talked about, that's not going to happen. I mean, they have a really good prospect pool, depending on where you look, of how good it is. But I thought that was interesting from Stamkos yesterday, Joe, it's pretty much safe to say that it doesn't sound like the rebuild is going to happen.
Yeah, I think those are comments that some people will not like to hear. But I guess it's like some of this could be semantics. I mean, like, if you're Bill Haslam, if you're I guess even Nick Saban, Nick Saban reportedly, sitting in on these, heavily involved in everything. Well, of course you like whatever is on the ice next year, like, you want to win, right? Sure. I mean, so like, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, of course, whatever this team looks like, the goal is going to be the playoffs. We already, like, we know there's too much in place unless there isn't, and that's where the new GM could come in, and all of a sudden some of these guys talking yesterday are not here, and then it's a more drastic approach, but like, there are a lot of locked in veterans who probably put your floor at a certain point that some quote unquote rebuilding teams would not have. Yeah. Right. So I it's interesting to me, like, if people have a problem with what he said. I don't necessarily think you should. And if I'm Bill Haslam, anybody here who's going to be here beyond this, I'm not. I mean, why would you have conversations with these guys and say, look, like, we're blowing it up, and I mean, you don't even know if you can blow it up, right?
Right.
So, but I understand people hearing that, if you can't put yourself in his shoes, and you're a Preds fan who has been screaming for years about, do more to take a step back so we can take a bigger step forward, then you might not like that.
Yeah, well, like this is what I've been trying to say for weeks. Like the rebuild in the way that you think of a rebuild is not happening. I don't care who they hire. Like that's not happening. I mean, they've already in some ways kind of gone down that path, right? Now, it hasn't looked like the way that a traditional quote unquote rebuild looks like. But when you've already got a top 5 prospect pool, like your rebuild in some ways, whether you wanted it to or not, has already started. So I think from the Nashville Predators roster, like that's what forget the whole organization and the prospect pool. What's the Nashville Predators roster going to look like next year? That to me is the biggest question, because right now you've got O'Reilly and Stamkos and Forsberg and Yossi and Saros and all these guys, Marchessault, all these guys are under contract. And I think, some of those guys you probably could move on from. Some of those guys, it's totally up to them whether you move on from them or not. And some of those guys, I mean, good luck. You're not moving those contracts. I mean, quite frankly. So, with that in the backdrop, I think the people who just want to see all the veterans go, I mean, you're not living in reality. That can't happen this offseason. So, in the meantime, what does that mean? Like, I guess I look at Stamkos' comments and I say this. All right, there's one thing between, obviously everybody, when you field your team next year, everybody's going to want to win, right? Like you're not showing up to training camp with Steven Stamkos on your team and saying, yeah, buddy, I just hope we try hard out there and it goes well this year. But like if they get through the offseason, Joe, and you look at their opening night roster and it's what I said it was going to be, or what my plan was last week, which was, hey, Matthew Woods in your top 6 and Brady Martin's made the team. And, some of these other young guys that you need to find the answers about, they're on the team. And they don't go out this offseason, make like a huge trade and make a huge addition and maybe supplement a couple of guys in free agency. Well, there's your answer right there, right? Like it's not like you're putting all your chips into the table for next year. And I don't anticipate that is going to happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. But we don't know who the GM is. That's
true.
The funny thing about all this stuff, too. And already on the YouTube chat, by the way, I'm out of the text line today. So
okay,
if people who want to text in and really like say nasty things about me, I won't even see them today. So today is a good day for that. But the YouTube chat, we already have, people freaking out, mushy middle, and I'm hoping, the next boss, Redemption, hoping the next boss is not going to play ball with continuing the same old story. Again, it's like there is a reality here where like you just said, you can start to go younger, and that may, make it unlikely, probably makes it unlikely to make the playoffs. But, we don't know. We don't know how a lot of guys are going to perform.
Yep.
But like, that is, and maybe a big move or two with one of these guys. But yeah, like the idea that you can just wipe the slate clean, like that's not the real world.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. So that's where we start today. Steven Stamkos says, hey, the goal next year is going to be, let's get in the playoffs. And that's the message that's been communicated. And he doesn't feel like a rebuild is coming. We'll take your thoughts on that. More coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Today, the Nashville Sounds taking on Charlotte. First pitch at 10:05 a.m. You can catch all the action on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Family Leisure and Social Cantina. Taking your thoughts at 615-737-1025. Steven Stamkos saying yesterday, hey, goal for the Predators is going to be to make the playoffs next year, and doesn't get the sense that any sort of rebuild is coming. Taking your thoughts on that at 615-737-1025. Roman Yossi talked yesterday. Forsberg talked. All the usual suspects from veterans that you would expect. And the message was pretty much the same on that front when it comes to the expectation level heading into next year. Now, here's one argument that I've made, Joe, that I think from a new general manager coming in is fine if this is your approach. And this even applies to the coaching situation with Andrew Brunette. Like, I think there's an idea out there that, well, everything has to be new immediately, right? Like, you got to come in and just change everything immediately. And that doesn't really have to happen. Like, you got, I think, 1 year left on Andrew Brunette's contract. You have a general manager that's going to be coming in that, unless, as I said last week, unless you've got a guy right now that you're one of these general manager candidates that you're like, I have to have this guy, like right now. I don't see harm in coming in, evaluating your new situation and organization, and then seeing how next year starts off with Andrew Brunette, right? And the coaching staff. Because, that was probably the other common theme yesterday, which was just pointing out the facts that the last 3 years, you've just been absolutely screwed by your starts to season. And a couple years ago, you were able to overcome it because you went on this crazy 18-game point streak at the end of the year, and you snuck your way into the playoffs. But the last 2 years, last year, you had a bad start, a bad middle, and a bad finish. That's a tough combo. But this year, as Stamkos pointed out, Stamkos rattled off all these numbers basically since Thanksgiving that the Predators have done. They had a top 10 record. They had a top 10 power play. They had a top 5 penalty kill. They had all these things, which is great. He's right. It's a long sample size of playing good hockey. But the problem is you just absolutely destroy yourself early in the year when you get off to just wretched starts. And it'd be one thing if you got off to a so-so start in a season, Joe, but the last 3 years they've gotten off to terrible starts. Just horrible. And it really doesn't matter when it happens. Like, if you get more than like a week into the season and you're in dead last in the NHL, that's a tough thing to claw your way all the way back from. And that, for whatever reason, that's been a problem under Andrew Brunette. So if you're the new general manager, if that's a problem again next year, then I think the decision becomes pretty simple at that point, right? It's like, all right, well, this is the 4th year in a row that the team has started like absolute crap. That's a problem. That's a trend from your coach at this point. But I don't think there's anything wrong with evaluating. It doesn't all have to be done the 3rd day he's in office when that next GM comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, as we talk through this, and you've got a few names that have been reported as multiple interviews and things like that. Again, you don't know exactly if it's like clearly I've got a guy in mind, or I don't know. I guess I'd be surprised if there was anyone hired who was like definitely sticking with Brunette, but certainly open mind to stick with him as possible. And it's another thing in his favor, as you said, Stamkos was rattling through all the different things that they did well, and we did see some encouraging signs in terms of some young guys this year, right? So that is something that I think if you're Andrew Brunette arguing for yourself, that would be something that you would emphasize. Certainly Matthew Wood, you see a lot of promise there. Not he's a middle-ish guy, but even like the way like Evangelista's bounce back season, I think is an encouraging thing, of course, right? There's a lot of individual storylines here, and then there's some guys who, as we're going to get to, that just haven't worked out here. But that's when you start to get into what if you made this change, this subtraction here? What does that do? How much addition by subtraction is possible here?
Yep, and a couple other things on that. Like there were some young guys that took meaningful steps. If the team next season is going to get to where Steven Stamkos wants them to be, and to where Ryan O'Reilly wants them to be, and some of these other guys that are veteran players, it's going to require, leaps from young guys, right? Like Matthew Wood's going to have to take it up another notch. Brady Martin, if he makes the team, is going to have to be a pretty impactful player, like right from the jump next year. So there's enough where you look at it and you say, like, how likely is making the playoffs next year? And the other thing I'll say is this: like, the Predators deserve a lot of credit for hanging in there and making it interesting coming down the stretch. And they got to the last week of the season where they were alive for the playoffs, which is good considering where they were coming from. I would also say the Western Conference was down pretty bad this year, right? And it's not normally that bad. And if, let's say, it was a normal season where you're looking at about 95 points to secure that last playoff spot, well, it probably wouldn't have been as interesting for the Predators coming down the stretch, right? So I think you also, if you're a new general manager, like, you have to have that in mind, as well as, yes, it's a good story of what they did and where they came back from and how hard they fought. It's also a pretty crappy year for the Western Conference, and that's really the only reason they were in it down the stretch.
Yeah, no, that's a very important point to make, because that's typically what you expect. Like 95, usually you hit 95 and you're in, but usually you need to get to about there, and this was this year was not there. So that's important context. And of course, people are also freaking out about Porter Martone. So I get it. I mean, but George from Murfreesboro, Preds fans should be absolutely living about Porter Martone going out and lighting up the playoffs. And we got to be patient with old farmer boy. Huh?
Let's
there's
see
a lot
how
of old
good
farmer
Brady Martin
boys.
is.
Yeah, there's a lot of old farmer boys who do okay in the NHL. By the way,
if Brady Martin in 2 years is put up 70 points in the NHL, I think you're gonna be all right. Like, let's wait a little bit. Look, Porter Martone looks really good so far. There's no doubt about it. Again, my guess would be, if they had drafted Porter Martone, some of the same people would be saying, well, how in the world didn't they take a center? You mean you tell me they didn't take a center? So, like,
and they wouldn't be watching him play right now.
Yeah. Also wouldn't be doing that. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Jonathan Marchessault with some interesting comments yesterday as well. We will get into those coming up next, including, I asked him pretty directly, hey, do you want to be here? We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We have another Joe Rexrode athletic mock draft to get into coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, which General Manager Joe is back on display. So
well, just to be clear, like it publishes tomorrow. So, but I have a takeaway from my participation.
That's what we're getting into. You're the GM of this squad.
Yeah,
that's what we're going for.
I have strong conviction after going through it that like there's a right way and there's a wrong way.
Okay, we'll get into that in the 7 o'clock hour for the Tennessee Titans. Taking your thoughts on the Preds at 615-737-1025 is our phone number. So, end of season press conferences yesterday. We just played a clip of Steven Stamkos talking about what his expectation is this summer. And not a good year for Jonathan Marchessault, and it has not really worked out for Jonathan Marchessault, as we've discussed here in Nashville to this point. He had 31 points in 62 games this year, 12 goals, 19 assists. He battled through some injuries this year. Just didn't go well for Jonathan Marchessault. And I asked him about that yesterday, and then we'll just play this entire exchange. There's a couple of questions from me and kind of a conversation back and forth with him here where toward the end of it, Joe, I just asked him straight up if he wants to be here. And I thought his answer was pretty interesting. Here's what Jonathan Marchessault had to say yesterday.
How frustrating was this year with not only just the results that you talked about with your game, but just the injuries that you had to battle through? Was this the most frustrating year that you've had personally?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I was not in a good headspace. I wasn't the person that I'm usually am, and it's ended up going against me, and it's part of it, like whatever how you feel the body and everything. If you're not in a good mindset, I think not a lot of success happens to people that don't have a good mindset. And I'm normally a really, really positive person and look at what you can control and all that kind of stuff. And this year I wasn't. So it reflects the year that I had, and we're definitely gonna try to change that.
Do you want to be here as part of the solution moving forward? Have you had conversations about moving elsewhere? Like, kind of where has that stood over the last few months?
Yeah, I mean, it's an unbelievable group of guys here. That's one thing I'll tell you. I want to be around those guys, and I want to be playing playoff games. But I'm aware that if I play the way I played like this year, I'm not going to bring anything to the playoffs. So I think you got to look at yourself in the mirror. There's guys that made a difference this year, and there's guys that didn't make a difference, and I didn't make a difference this year. So, I want to take ownership towards that and look at myself in the mirror and help the Preds get to a playoff team.
So that was Marchessault yesterday, Joe. What do you make of that when you hear kind of that back and forth?
Well, good line of questioning from you. There's a few things there. First of all, just the pauses and everything. It's like it just felt like he was just trying to dance around what he wanted to say, which is no. Yeah. But also like this whole like I wasn't myself, and it's like, dude, if you're like that person for like a year or 2 years, isn't that actually who you are? How could you claim like being out of character for like that long, and then that just makes no sense to me. So I don't know. Like, is this just as simple as he says? Unbelievable group of guys. Is it just like a conflict with Andrew Brunette?
I don't know. Like, you could kind of hear it there in the answer with the pause. Like when I asked him if he wanted to be here, there was, I don't know how to describe it. It's like one of those things you had to be there in the media scrum for. He didn't really say yes, right? Like, at the end of the answer, he got around to like, helping the Preds get in the playoffs. And, one thing that he said that I do believe, I think, earlier in the press conference, he talked about how like this is a great place to live. And he was talking about that's the point he kept coming back to. He's like, it's a great place to live. But it very, very rarely did it come around to like, this is a place I still believe I can win, right? Like that didn't happen a whole lot. And he talked in that answer that we just heard about the group of guys. Like, I think he genuinely loves his teammates. Like, I think he loves, the guys that are in the locker room. Stamkos said yesterday, and when Stamkos says this stuff, like I actually pay attention to it because he doesn't throw out like the coach speak cliche crap that a lot of people do. Stamkos said yesterday, this group of guys was one of his favorite groups that he's ever played hockey with. He said after that, he said, I'm not just saying that either. Like, this is one of my favorite groups that I've ever played hockey with, which makes the failure of not making the playoffs even more painful when you think about it that way. Marchessault, I think there are clearly, when you combine last year's answer with all the coaching stuff, and then this year when I asked him, hey, like, do you want to be here? And he started going into how much he loves his teammates. And then he immediately started getting into his own game. He's like, I realize if I play the way that I played this year, that no matter where I am, that's what he said. Like, no matter what team, I'm not taking any team to the playoffs. But I just get the sense from him that there have been conversations over the last few months about like, hey, man, I think on both sides of if we can find something here, let's find something and move on. So I think that's something that when the new general manager comes in, I walked away from that conversation, Joe, yesterday thinking to myself, that's probably the last time that I will be speaking to Jonathan Marchessault in a Predators uniform. That was my takeaway.
Yeah. But the interesting thing will be what they can do to move him. Because the thing that he's essentially selling like an entire year of being in some kind of a funk and, that's not who he is and everything. A big part of the reality here is he's diminished as a player. He's not the same player he was when they got him. He's a diminishing asset as a player. Do you think he's going to go somewhere else and set the world on fire and play like he did in Vegas? I don't.
I don't know that he'll set the world on fire. He will be better than he's been here. I think it's all about like the Predators, and maybe Matthew Wood turns into that guy, but they haven't had a good center for him. Like, he's not fit in well. And I think it's a combination of that. It's a combination of, he is 35 years old. So you have to keep that in mind.
Right.
He is diminishing as a player. He's not the same guy he used to be. And I don't think that they've put him in a great position. Like, I think all those things are true. And, Trotz was talking about him yesterday and saying, what's made him great his entire career is he's had a chip on his shoulder, and we got to find a way to get a chip back on his shoulder. We'll see what that ends up looking like. But I just think clearly the fit here has not gone well for him. Now, at this point, to your point, he's 35 years old. So, is he going to go somewhere else and score 40 again? I'd say probably not. Could he go somewhere else and put up 50-something points and score 25 goals again? Yeah, I think he could.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I can see that. And so, yeah, it's just this is a must move probably on both ends of it. So, and I'm sure that'll be communicated to the new GM.
I think what Trotz said about the chip on the shoulder is a big one on this one. For me, the whole Vegas situation with the expansion draft, a lot of those guys at the start played with that whole reject mentality.
Sure.
That their other teams didn't want them and Vegas got them. And I think Marchessault in particular really played that role in Vegas as like, the forgotten players and the castaways and all that kind of stuff. You could see it when he played, and he kind of really embraced that. And I don't know if moving situations and the whole contract thing, changes your mentality and changes that quote chip on your shoulder. But I think I wrote that down as like something, that I could see mentality wise. His just style of play just didn't translate the same.
Oh, I think it's a good point. Like, clearly something has changed, and I think it's a combination of a couple things, but I think that's part of it, right? Yeah, it's first off, let's point it out. He ain't playing with Jack Eichel here, okay? So that's a big part of it, right? Like when you score 42 goals your last year in Vegas and you're playing a lot with Jack Eichel, yeah, that'll help. They ain't got Jack Eichel here, so let's make that clear. But I do think, from his perspective, it was interesting to hear him talk about all that yesterday because, in the locker room, it still feels like he's pretty beloved in there. Like he's a different guy. We talked about that at the end of last year, Joe, right? Like he's a different sort of guy that kind of marches to the beat of his own drum, but like he's pretty funny. And I think a lot of guys in there really like him, but I also think when he's not playing well and you see some of the energy that's in there where maybe it's not all positive, maybe that rubs on guys if that happens long enough,
Yeah, no, for sure. And I feel like we've seen that almost like Stamkos clap back at him on some things before too, right? It was kind of clear. I will say another thing that went through my head, which Loppy87 says in the YouTube chat: Barry's retirement home is the best.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, yeah, I do think Marchessault probably he thinks he has good hockey ahead of him. He could do better elsewhere, as you said, in a better situation. But it's hard not to think about some of that stuff with a guy like him.
It is. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on Jonathan Marchessault's comments, more takeaways from the end of season press conferences for the Predators. We will get into the NFL draft to begin the 7 o'clock hour. Alex Doherty from the Tennessee and at 8, all that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 the game. In Rexrode 1025 The Game. Get your thoughts at 615-737-1025 on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Matthew from Jolton throwing it out there. If you change coaches, does Jonathan Marchessault stay? Realistically, I want DeBoer or Bruce Cassidy, but DeBoer is no longer available. So DeBoer is has been gobbled up. Bruce Cassidy is out there. We'll see what that looks like. Look, does Marchessault stay if the coach changes? I don't know. You'd have to tell me who the coach is there and how they kind of view him. Look, and also the other part of this is I also recognize that it's not necessarily going to be easy to trade Jonathan Marchessault in his contract. Like it's not an insane contract. Like he's got 3 more years left on it at $5.5 million or whatever the number is. So it's not that bad. Like it's not just a total albatross or anything. But I mean, the production hasn't been great, and he is 35 years old. And are you going to find a team that's willing to take on all of that? That's an interesting question. That I can't guarantee that the answer to that question is yes. So there is a chance that he's under contract, he's here, and he's starting off the year here next year. I just from an urgency standpoint, if you're the Predators, I think it makes a lot of sense to go ahead and try to get out of that thing this offseason if you can. And, I understand everybody wants to avoid buyouts, and I'm with you there too. But, I don't know. I don't know how Bill Haslam feels about that. I don't know how the new general manager is going to feel about that. I think everything could be on the table.
Yeah. And it's an interesting question in terms of the coaching. I guess another question is like, look, there's just been limitations with this lineup for him and all this stuff, and a lot of it is just the bulk of it is just on him. But if there is a new coach, does that like how much does that matter to him?
Well, I think if they hire Bruce Cassidy, I think it'd matter a lot, right? Like he had somebody he played for and loves in Vegas and won a Stanley Cup with. Like if the new GM comes in and they fire Brunette and bring in Bruce Cassidy, I think that that'd probably go a long way. If it doesn't go that way, and the likelihood is it probably won't, then I don't know. I don't know what that means. Like, I think clearly at the end of last season, there were issues between Brunette and Marchessault just in terms of the way that he felt like they were attacking things. Now, one thing Brunette's talked about all off season and all season long was I think the word he uses is a buzzword around here, Joe, collaboration that he had with the veteran guys on the team and the system that they were running and some ideas that they all bounced off each other. And I have no doubt that Marchessault was probably a part of that. So, does he feel this, like, have those differences been bridged at this point? I don't know. Like, how much of this year does Marchessault feel like is on the situation on the coaching staff? How much of this year is just simply on him? I don't know what the percentage balance is between those two things.
I guess to his credit, he put it on himself. He talked about himself and not being which again, I'm still looking at. It's like, something's not right with that. But at least he didn't throw anybody else under the bus with this last thing. So there's that.
That is true. It's true. Remember last year, it's like, I love Bruce. Bruce Cassidy he's our great coach. Best coach I've ever played for in Vegas. Like, oh, good. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
I miss Bruce.
Joel says, so much is still unknown for this franchise until we get the new GM. Sounds like Marchessault had the double whammy of injuries plus mental/emotional issues. If he does stay, it'd be nice to see him bounce back like Stamkos has. It is interesting. I mean, think back to the first 10, 15 games this year. I mean, it looked like the Stamkos thing was going to be a disaster, right? Like it looked like it was going to be, similar to how it's like, hey, did you guys know that Randy Moss played for the Titans at one point? Because he did. It was like, hey, did you guys like it was looking like it was going to be a trivia question at some point later, like in life of, hey, did you guys know that Steven Stamkos played for the Nashville Predators? Because it was going so poorly and he had 1 goal in the first 14 games or whatever it was. And then he went on an absolute tear to close things out to the point where, like, he clearly, he figured some things out. He talked about it a little bit yesterday of how he had to change the game and get to the front of the net a little bit more, and then he got some confidence going, and confidence kind of snowballed from there to the point, Joe, where even at 36, 37 years old, like, and I've heard Willie say this, and I agree. Like Stamkos is going to be able to shoot the puck like he shoots the puck until he's like 60. Like Ovechkin could play in the league as long as he wanted to, just because he could shoot the puck. Just crazy. Like that shot's not going away. Now, all the other stuff, it starts to deteriorate, and at some point that's too much to overcome. But like Stamkos and his ability to shoot the puck, that's why, like, when it was all going poorly for him, my point kept being like, well, he can still shoot. Like, it's not like he forgot how to score. So I'm encouraged by Stamkos in the year that he had. And I feel like from the jump next year, he should be productive. But Marchessault, I don't know. Like that I think there's still so much up in the air for him of, first off, Marchessault's not Stamkos. And we talked about that the moment they all signed. Like, Stamkos scoring 40 goals is normal. He's done it 8 times in his career. Marchessault scoring 40 goals like he did the year before he signed here, that ain't normal. That's happened once for him. So, like, I think you also have to keep that in the background as well. And we talked about that. He scored 42 goals in Vegas before he signed here, playing with Jack Eichel. His previous high before that was 30 in 16-17, all the way back with the Florida Panthers. So he's typically been like a, 25, 28, 27 goal guy, somewhere right around there.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have what Stamkos has, so his game diminishes faster overall, and yeah, like 35 is it's not ancient. But if you're another team, when you talk about the Preds possibly moving him and stuff like that, I mean, I hate the idea of the buyout situation, but
I do too.
But because they've just done too much of that. But if you're another team, I guess you really have to look at, first of all, like what Ian was talking about earlier. I mean, maybe he played a little bit above his level, intangibly, benefiting him. Like you said, you have Jack Eichel as your centerman. And at this point, is this, if it's a combination of one, diminishing, there's no question that that's some of it, but then also like not handling it well, right? I mean, I think that's a fair criticism of him.
Yep.
That he could have handled this better. And especially, again, when I get to the end of this season and he talks about him being in a bad headspace for another entire year, I don't know. I think other teams, that could certainly be red flags for other teams who might be potentially interested in him.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Alex Doherty will be with us at 8 o'clock. We'll get his thoughts on the Preds, what they had to say yesterday at their end-of-season media interviews. We will get into the NFL draft coming up next. Rexrode has conviction, and I'm excited to hear it. We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you. We are presented by Green Ventures Landscaping. Property managers, if you manage it, they maintain it. Visit greenventureslandscaping.com. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Our football offseason coverage is brought to you by Tennessee Brew Works. From kickoff to last call, Tennessee Brew Works, the official craft beer of football offseason coverage here on ESPN 1025 The Game. So, Joe, you have participated in another beat writer mock draft that, as you have discussed, will come out tomorrow. So we look forward to that at The Athletic. But in this process, you have been strengthened in your conviction, which, as we know, the more your conviction can be strengthened, the better off it all is for all of us that get to experience that with you. So, Joe, what have you uncovered? What have you discovered about yourself and about the Tennessee Titans in this draft process over this exercise that you've embarked on?
Well, I just to give a little preview, this draft publishes tomorrow, and there's some real interesting trades, but not involving the Titans. I just as I came upon it, when I had the choice, and I think the Titans may, although I don't know, maybe this Arizona Cardinals stuff has legs. I mean, Todd McShay is saying there's somebody in that organization who's been just on the table for Jeremiah Love, and he didn't realize until now that this person's has as much influence as this person does. I mean, with Todd McShay anymore, it's kind of like, I don't know. Sometimes there's some weird stuff there. I don't know that it's always completely reliable, but it's interesting, and certainly he talks to people, and so I don't know. Maybe this won't happen, but to me, the choice of Love and one of the edge guys is I think there's a good chance it's there, and Sonny Styles too, by the way. Because some people, I don't know, I haven't heard anybody who actually says like Sonny Styles should be the choice, but it's possible that he could be. But to me, it's just this isn't a change, but it's just like, man, I really feel as strongly as ever about it. You don't go the running back. You in that scenario, if you have Reese or Bailey there, you go there, man. You have to. And it's just, I understand why people would have more fun with Love as the choice and why that's directly helping Cam Ward. But the Tennessee Titans have to build a great football team. They have to do everything right in terms of, making good choices, picking the best players, things like that, but also just using every aspect of a decision and considering all aspects. And that to me means like you just can't pass up someone who's going to be that level of an edge player, who projects to be that level of an edge player. We don't. Some of these guys are going to flame out and bust completely. Some of these guys who go in the 4th round are going to be like that's what it is. But you cannot pass up an edge who profiles like Reese or Bailey do for a running back. You just can't. And so that is I think you and I have both said we would go that way, but I feel now, again, I went through it. It's like, man, there's just, to me, no justification for taking Love if you have that possibility, if you have that opportunity. So I'm here to take all the screaming for this take. Unfortunately for you, I'm not on the text line. So I have no idea. I'm sorry, I can't see you. It's like almost like I muted you. YouTube chat, go for it. And I know some people agree with me and some people strongly disagree, but this is a long process. This is not 1 year. They're not going to fix everything in 1 year. They're not going to, have this complete offense for Cam Ward in 1 year. You have to do the best you can to bring in great players who, again, you can't get otherwise, right? And that's where the difference is here. Whereas I'm not saying you're going to get a Jeremiah Love in his prime if he's as good as everybody thinks, in free agency, but you can be awfully good at running back in a lot of different ways in this league, and that's not true at edge.
Well, look, I want to be clear about what I'm going to say here. If the Titans end up with Jeremiah Love because the Jets have taken David Bailey and then the Cardinals or somebody trades up with the Cardinals and they take Arvell Reese, I'm cool with that, man. Like if your choice isn't there between one of those edge guys and Jeremiah Love and you go Love, great. That's awesome. Like that's what I would do. If one of those edge guys is there and they take Jeremiah Love, which I'm praying that situation happens where one of those edge guys is there and they've got the choice between those two, you better take the edge guy. Like in some ways, Joe, and I know there'll be probably a lot of Titans fans that don't want to hear this. In some ways, I kind of hope Schefter's right from yesterday and either Arizona or somebody moving up to 3 with Arizona is doing it to go get Jeremiah Love. And that leaves you with either Arvell Reese or David Bailey. Like, because, I mean, as we've talked about with those two guys, I think there's potential there to have the sort of pass rusher that, frankly, this team just hasn't had in a long time, right? Like, the last time they selected in the draft a pass rusher that's that impactful, or at least has the chance, right? Because we don't know. Like, maybe Arvell Reese gets to the league and it just doesn't work, or David Bailey's not the player we think he is.
Well, of course.
But if it works out the way we think it will with those two guys, I mean, they've never really had that. Like, Curse would be the closest thing, right? Like, Curse coming in the league, and we saw how important he was. Now, again, that's at this point, it's almost 30 years ago. So, you know, I don't know about you. I don't know about other Titans fans. I'm tired of using examples of things that happened 30 years ago, be that Eddie George and Steve McNair, be that Javon Curse, whatever that, you know, respectfully to those guys. You know, I've watched those guys, loved watching them play, all those things. It's time to become an organization where the examples you use are more recent, right? It's time to find some impactful players through the draft that come in and live up to what you want them to be when you take them. So yeah, like I'm with you. Like I would, if it comes down to the choice between Reese, Bailey, or Love, one of those two guys, I'm going the pass rusher all day long.
Yeah, like I guess you could go back to Cal Vandenbosch, but yeah, he had a great runner, but he was also he was the rare case of, you know, he was with Coach Mack with the Cardinals. He came here,
right?
And
he wasn't drafted here.
Yeah, and he was a second-round pick of the Cardinals. He came here and had his best football here. I mean, again, these things can happen, but there's a much stronger correlation between where you go in the draft and success at edge and at offensive tackle than there is at a lot of other positions. So in this scenario, I would hope, if that's the way they go, that then they give Cam Ward help that, again, immediately is more pressing, which is at receiver, and use a significant pick at 35 or whatever. I mean, I suppose you know maybe they could also try. You know, they've got their eyes on someone who's still there late first. They could move up or whatever. But I just think that's the best way. And then you have a chance. You know, if you have and I mean, who knows who the Jets are taking? It seems like it's almost split down the middle from people who cover the Jets and people who cover the league. So good for the Jets for putting out that much uncertainty with the way that they've gone about things on the Reese Bailey front. But regardless, you expect him to take one of them. You think about either of those guys, but I mean, I guess to me, I think about Bailey. For some reason, I just think it's going to be Reese. I think the Jets have smoke screen, and it's Reese. But either of them, with what the Titans have inside, you might, again, immediately have something really cooking on the defensive side of the ball. And absolutely that helps your quarterback. The Bengals, whatever you think about the Bengals as an organization, that move to get Dexter Lawrence is a help Joe Burrow now move, because you have to be able to have balance, and you have to be able to get the ball back and not beg your quarterback to score 35 points in a game.
Look, if the Jets take Reese at number 2 and the Cardinals take Jeremiah Love at number 3, I would set an NFL record if I were the GM of the Titans for how quickly I called the general manager to take David Bailey at number, or to call the commissioner to take David Bailey at number 4. An NFL record. Like as soon as I saw Jeremiah Love get selected, the phone would be dialed. I'd be like, hey, here's David Bailey. Here's the selection for the Titans. David Bailey, number 4. Thank you.
Yeah, can you do like a pre thing, where you like set a timer on your oven or something? Just say if this, just lock us in for David Bailey. Yeah. If you could do that, they should do that. But then we say that, and then they'll go Sonny Styles. So
who gets more time on the broadcast? Whoever the Titans take at number 4 this year, or Cam Ward from last year, who got approximately 14 seconds.
I would think that this year they would have a normal, as long as some team doesn't make the trade of the century that already looks bad right now. That I would think that they would that the Titans pick would get some attention. Let's hope. Because or maybe they should revisit Cam, and like let Cam redo the Cam pick.
You guys may have missed it from our draft coverage last year, but Cam Ward actually got drafted first overall by the Titans a year ago.
How about that? Yeah. Put him on invite him to the draft. Maybe he'd like to come to the draft.
Maybe so. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. So you've heard Joe Rexrode's pitch. You've heard the conviction from Rexrode. We'll take your reaction, your thoughts on the NFL draft at 615-737-1025. Our phone number, Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game.
A lot of people believe he's the best player in this draft. Now the question becomes, how high can he go? And there are people around the league who believe that Arizona will have him in the conversation to go number 3. The Cardinals are going to listen to offers for the 3rd overall pick. We'll see ultimately what they decide. There are many holes they have to address, but there have been people out there saying it could be difficult for them to pass on the best player if he happens to be there at 3, which we are expecting.
That was Adam Schefter, one of the greatest writers of our time, discussing the Jeremiah Love situation with Arizona. Just still waiting on the clarification on his Chris Brazzell construction of the sentence from yesterday. I'm sure that'll be coming at some point.
Yeah, like is anybody else reacting to this, or like has anybody, because there's all this aggregation out there, like as like A to Z or anyone, do we have any headlines out there about how Chris Brazzell is the next George Pickens?
I don't know.
Or again, maybe I don't know that he was necessarily saying that, but he might have been. That's how Jake Lyman took it. And then at first I read like, no. Then I'm like, oh wait, maybe that does mean that. I don't know.
Can I just say,
it'd be nice,
for the record,
it'd be nice for some clarification.
I'll just say this for the record. I don't believe at all that the Arizona Cardinals are going to take Jeremiah Love. I do not.
Okay.
I absolutely do not believe this. And you look, I'm not an NFL insider. I could be wrong. They do have James Conner on the roster, and they just signed Tyler Algier, who's 26 years old.
Yeah.
Could they do it? Sure. I do not believe it. Like, there's so many other things that they need. I think this is an attempt to get them to be able to trade back. Like, I think that's what this is. I think Arizona would like to trade back and pick up some more picks and start to address the several different holes that they've got on their roster, both offensively and defensively. But I do not for a second believe that Jeremiah Love is going number 3 to the Arizona Cardinals. Now, he may go number 3, but I don't think he's going number 3 to the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think this seems like one of those, okay, what's our draft week media strategy type things. And hey, Adam Schefter, always willing to play a little ball with somebody. So,
and I still, as good as I think Jeremiah Love is, I still got a hard time believing that somebody's trading up to go get a running back. I do. Like, it's one thing to pick a running back in the top 5. Like, it's already controversial enough. I got a hard time believing that somebody's going to package together even more to go move up and get it. I will have to see that to believe it coming up on Thursday night.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's crazy. I can't believe someone's going to do that. If someone does do that and like moves into 3 and takes him, well, to me, I understand sometimes fans will be upset, but this comes off bad because I think Jeremiah Love's really good. I think he's going to be really good in the NFL, but it's kind of a bullet dodge for the Titans to me if that's the case. And I say all this now, and in a couple of years we may be talking about, again, Jeremiah Love just taking the NFL by storm. Jeremiah Love, Offensive Player of the Year candidate on a regular basis, all this stuff. And if that's the case, then a lot of this stuff will be justified, but that is such a high bar to set for someone.
Well, it's a high bar, and are we talking about David Bailey, with 11 or 12 sacks each of the next 4 or 5 years? Because honestly, even if Jeremiah Love starts winning like Offensive Player of the Year as a running back, if you're telling me that Bailey is going to be an 11 or 12 sack guy every year, I'll take that, man. Like, you can go find another running back, maybe that's not Jeremiah Love, but you can find a good running back, but you can't find a dynamic young pass rusher with the traits that some of these guys have.
Right. And so I agree. So if Bailey, if that's the pick, or Reese come in and they're great, but also at that point you need to have more things figured out on offense.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So that's another part of it. So I mean, if you got Bailey and that's the way you went, whether it was out of your hands or not, and he's getting you 12 sacks, getting you 10 to 12 sacks, but you also still have an offense that's scoring 17 points a game, and Cam Ward doesn't look that much. So then first of all, then you're going back to the Ward pick, because at some point that's obvious. We're not far from that sort of a referendum on that, but that's where, again, like, if I just feel like, as much as I'm a BPA truther, I also still feel like if you do this, you do have to maybe tilt things a little bit toward offensive help with the next pick.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see if the Titans trade back too. Everybody's talking about Arizona now. It would be just like the Titans would be like, okay, somebody wants to move up and Dallas wants to move up and get Sonny Styles. So let's go ahead and trade back and we'll get Ruben Bain. Somebody asking on the text line if Bailey and Reese are gone, would you take Ruben Bain over Jeremiah Love?
No,
I would not. I'm asking you.
No, I would not. No. I like Bain, but I just think there's just, and I'm not, the car accident thing to me is not, it seems like, it was just an accident, obviously got to learn from it and things like that. That's not, it's the physical dimensions with him. The history it's a pretty long history, and I think he's going to be a really good player in the NFL, and I would take him at 9. I would take him at 12, but I think if that's the choice, I'd go Love, which kind of just, puts a torch to a lot of what I've said today. But I mean, you still have to, like, at some point you have to go best player and how many questions and how many holes, right? Because
there are more questions with Ruben Bain than there are David Bailey and Arvell Reese.
Exactly. And there's just, and Love, I mean, Love still, I do envision Love being really good. And I do think that if he can really be an asset in the passing game, and he's a little bit more than just a running back, that's something to keep in mind too. And he's a lot of people think he's just the best overall player in the draft. And Bain, I just think that's a little bit too rich for Ruben Bain.
I do as well. This is setting up real nicely for a Sonny Styles pick at number 4 for the Titans coming up on Thursday night, this whole conversation. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, and look, that's a tough one for me. He would be last for me among all these possible guys. He'd be last. I'm very intrigued by him. And what that could mean. You still would have, like, just some pretty good guys on the edge for this defense. And so you're like, okay, so what does this mean? Now, Styles is a blitzer too and all that stuff, but still, like, you got to be able to win one-on-one battles or even beat double teams at times on the edge, I think, to have a great defense. But I will say Styles and Gray and the way they would complement each other, and then now what you have inside up front, it could still be, that could still be a key piece for a great defense. But if it's kind of the same thing with Jeremiah Love. If you go that way, then he needs to be one of those 2 or 3 linebackers we talk about every year in the NFL. Yes. Like, that's it. You can't, like, the bar gets set so high if you're taking a position like, inside linebacker or running back that high.
Well, as it should. Like, it should be. Like, if Jeremiah Love gets taken at number 4, he better be an all-pro running back pretty quickly into his NFL career. If Sonny Styles gets taken at number 4, he better be an all-pro inside linebacker pretty quickly in his NFL career. I'm sorry. That's what it should be. And, I mean, you could say that about everybody. Like, if you get – but, again, Cameron, and I understand his point on the text line, 10 to 12 sacks if you're David Bailey is not really all that dynamic. It's Harold Landry. I think Landry got 12 and a half one year. He got 10 another year with the Titans. So, yeah, like, if David Bailey – like, I'd like to have David Bailey have 15 sacks a year. But I'm just saying, like, at edge rusher – it's more impactful. So I think you have to factor that in when you're judging how these draft picks go. If you're drafting a non-premium position at number 4 overall, those guys need to be all pro players for you at those positions.
Yeah, absolutely. And all pro, and like in the conversation, like Fred Warner has been, I'm like, this is a great linebacker, one of the great defensive players in the league. And like, he's going to be in Canton. I mean, I'm not saying whoever you pick has to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer, but yeah, to have that kind of impact at that position.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We will take more of your thoughts on the NFL draft. Plus, Dan Patrick's throwing it out there that he knows the date that Nashville is getting the Super Bowl. We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. I got some tickets to give away to the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race, the Float 200, coming up at Nashville Super Speedway on Friday, May the 29th. to caller number 4, 615-737-1025. Caller 4 will win a pair of tickets to the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race coming up at Nashville Superspeedway on Friday, May the 29th. Taking your thoughts on the Titans at 615-737-1025. Nevada Josh says, do we know for sure Jeremiah Love's a great player, or is he just a really good player that was on a great team? Joe, my response is, I don't guess you ever know for sure, but I'm pretty confident Jeremiah Love's going to be a great player. I am. Everything I've watched about him, all the testing, everything that goes into it, pretty confident he's going to be a great player in the NFL.
Yeah, sure. He was on a talented Notre Dame team, but no, he's unquestionably a great college football player. That's not. I mean, if you watch them play, he does things that are not normal. I mean, I was at the Notre Dame Indiana game, 2 years ago, where he made that little jump cut in the hole at the 3-yard line or whatever, and was gone.
Yep.
And I understand the Indiana Hoosiers defense of 2024 may not be the fastest defense known to man, but that was one of those geez, this guy. No, he's a great college player. I'm very confident he'll be at the least a very good NFL running back. If he's healthy, he's going to have multiple 1,000-yard seasons, probably 1,500-yard type seasons. He'll catch the ball. He's just as a straight up player. There are people who believe, I'd mentioned Bruce Feldman's piece yesterday. A lot of people quoted in that they just think he's the best player in the draft. It's just, again, the Titans are solid at running back, and they can get better at running back. They can get better at running back in this draft several rounds into it. That's the reality of running back. So you have to weigh those things. If they take him, it's going to be exciting around here. I think that's the most fun, exciting pick for everybody.
Agreed.
You have your rookie is going to be a centerpiece. Now you have the rookie who's paired with the second-year quarterback, high hopes, and he's going to get the ball a lot. And I think he's going to do well. It's not a bad thing. I really believe in the edge thing. And so people bring it up on the YouTube channel. What about Seattle? We've had this conversation before. Well, Seattle didn't have great edge players. Seattle, and that's true. Seattle is a team that does not have edge superstars. There's not one way to do this, but Seattle has a ton of great players on defense. They had some of the best corners in the league last year, and obviously they're great all the way around. And there's not one way to do this. But if you go back through Super Bowl champs in recent years, whether it's, maybe it's more like on the Chris Jones front, but then they have Bonilla, pass rush is a big part of a lot of these teams, most of these teams that get to and win the Super Bowl in one way or the other. It's affecting the quarterback. You're not going to find too many teams that get that far that don't affect the quarterback.
Here's the bottom line. I think if you're judging it just purely based on reaction from Titans fans, I think if the Titans end up with David Bailey or Arvell Reese, most Titans fans are going to be fine with that. I think if they end up with Jeremiah Love, most Titans fans are going to be happy with that. Based on what I'm seeing right now on the YouTube chat and on the text line, people do not love the idea of Sonny Styles being the selection at number 4. And he look, we talk about great players. He may end up being a great player. I've got pretty good confidence he's going to end up being a great player in the NFL. But I understand why, as Cameron points out on the text line, it's not the Ray Lewis era in football anymore. It's not. You can still find some pretty darn impactful and pretty darn important linebacker play. I mean, look, go back to Tampa, right? When Tampa won the Super Bowl with Brady, they had a heck of a pass rush. They had the GOAT leading the way at quarterback in there. Certainly the best Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback we've ever seen in Tom Brady. Their linebacking core is pretty good, man. You had Levante David, you had Devin White, and they're pretty
Incredible.
good. A lot of speed. Never mind the fact they almost killed Brett Kern on the fake punt here that Vrabel tried to get him killed. But independent of that, a pretty good linebacking core that they had there.
That game, the story of that game was that Patrick Mahomes could not stand in the pocket for more than a second and a half, ever. He made that one throw where he's upside down and it's like a psychedelic throw that he made. I mean, it was that they dominated the game, and Brady was great, and and all that. But That's why that team won it all, because they were hell on the opposing quarterback more than who their quarterback was. That's just real. And that's not me doing the Brady hater thing. That's just true. So, and the Eagles, you look at what they've been able to do. I mean, all over the field on defense in these last, in this recent era. That's the kind of the constant for them when they've been there, as they've had this great defense. I mean, defense wins championships is an old adage. It doesn't. There are definitely plenty of champions in modern times that the offense 100% led the way with a solid defense.
Yeah.
So again, it's just like when you're in a situation, you have to maximize the opportunity. And to me, maximizing this opportunity means taking a player that you just are going to have a hard time taking that player again, a player like that, unless you're at the top of the draft. And you want to stop being at the top of the draft.
That'd be great.
Way. You'd like to stop having these opportunities. So now you've got another one. So the more I think about it, the running back career, the running back outcome production has to be so exceptional if that's the way you go.
So, Joe, Dan Patrick put it out there yesterday that Nashville will be hosting the Super Bowl in 2030. And we've talked about that. Like, that's not a huge surprise. Like, we know when this new stadium gets completed that it's going to be pretty soon after. And we heard Burke Nihill say earlier this offseason that, like, the earliest it would probably would be 2030. So the 2030 date makes a lot of sense. Do we buy what Dan Patrick is throwing out there, Joe Rexrode? I do believe that Dan Patrick was the one that went with the McDonald's bag stories with the Jeremy Pruitt stuff, so we have to keep that in mind. But are we buying what Dan Patrick is throwing out there when it comes to Nashville hosting the Super Bowl in 2030?
Yeah, I'm going to buy it. The Titans did not confirm that yesterday. They also didn't refute it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to read into that or not, but I think mostly Dan Patrick is reliable. Yeah, the McDonald's bag thing was – now, I guess eventually, and this is with some Adam Sparks and Mike Wilson reporting, helping this, that we did get to – there were Chick-fil-A bags involved. Yes.
Chick-fil-A.
So, I mean, I guess Dan Patrick at least had fast food bags, and maybe he just kind of mixed up the brand a little bit there. But, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's hard for me to believe that they would make them wait any longer than that, now that they have it all nailed down until then. So I'm buying it. I'm mentally planning on it. And it's interesting, too, because if that's the case, so we've been talking the last few years about what kind of team are the Titans going to have when the stadium opens. And right now, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we have this offseason to see what they do in 26, and then they have another whole offseason. And is Cam Ward good? Is he not good? I mean, this year's going to tell us so much about that. But now you can also think about, can they get themselves to the point where the 29 team could at least talk about, we could play a Super Bowl at home,
Yeah.
Which means, I mean, like, can you at least be like a solid playoff team? Everybody expects to be in the postseason at that point. It seems so far off because of how bad it's been, but it's certainly possible.
Well, if they're not that by then, that probably means that you don't have the same quarterback and you don't have the same coaching staff and a whole lot of things that go into that. So if they're not that by then, it probably means it's a different cast of characters entirely by the time that comes around.
Yes. Then the thing is, in this league, like, it's not crazy. Well, if those things are all different, then yeah, that's problematic. But you say this, and it's like, if someone told you, like, even like going into like 18, like, okay, this is basically, it's about to start going really downhill for Mariota. Then how would you project ahead that at the end of the next season you're ahead in the AFC Championship game on the road in Kansas City?
Yeah,
because you had a freaking cast off quarterback you got for a 4th round pick who's playing out of his mind, and because your running back who had been a disappointment at that point has become like the biggest weapon in the league. Like things like that happen in the NFL. So it is about time for like some of those good things to start happening to the Titans. It seems.
Jared
But they also have
Curtis
to make it happen.
in his rookie year, quarterback of the Titans, leading them to the Super Bowl.
Oh my goodness. There you go. Jared, how many rookie quarterbacks have
It's gonna be great when Curtis goes first overall and Faison Brandon's second overall. What a time around here that's gonna be.
What if that is like the huge debate in 29? Like
Yeah.
who should be the number one pick? Jared Curtis or Faison Brandon?
I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to it coming up.
Hey, they're both very talented.
They are. 615-737-1025, our phone number. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. We'll have Alex Doherty at 8 o'clock. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Oh my God. What do I do with my hands? Who cares about his short arms? Your kid is not as good as you think he is.
Mike, is there a single fan out there that's smart at all, or are they all stupid? Let us know.
Keep the kid's name out of your mouth.
Joe is such a get off my grass old man.
Dude, you all right? Why are you yelling at that guy?
The biggest ass in town.
Kids, don't listen to me.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant, brought to you by Rapid Response Generators. Power when it matters the most. When the grid goes down, you're either covered or you're not. Check them out today at rapidresponsegenerators.com. Mr. Rexrode, the floor is yours.
So I was gonna I'm gonna hold off. I'm gonna hold off on this screaming about / at Koharski. I mean, it'd probably be better if he's just here, you know.
I agree.
We have some disagreements on all that went down last night. I will say, just I hope that the Nolensville and Ravenwood baseball teams can have 2 great games the next 2 days and without incident, and also that Nolensville continues to beat them. But I love Ravenwood too. We got family at Ravenwood, so I want to try. No shade, trying to be nice and peaceful here, other than with Koharski, who I will scream at tomorrow about many of his ridiculous things that he said last night. So I want to. I've been switched here on this idea, which is kind of new to me. So you help me out.
Okay.
As we talk through the Titans drafting, as we talk through Mike Borgonzi and what he values. So I haven't heard this. You tell me if this is true. This is Brand 2193. How come all you people have weird names on the YouTube chat? You can't just put your name on here. He claims, okay. Well, first of all, these people are like, well, Borgonzi cares too much about like character. Okay, that's the theme. Okay, which I don't know that I've really considered that, but he claims we literally faded Luther Burden and Nick Emenwari because Femi Oladejo is a nice guy. I totally believe Borgonzi will take character over talent. Again, people ripping Femi, all this stuff. So, first of all, is that a thing? Is that something that have we under discussed this? Is that true? I'll throw that out there. But also, I will say this gives me a thought about someone in this draft. I wonder if, because of Oladejo, if an Arvel Reese would be a little bit of a fear point for Borgonzi here. Because, and it's not the same, Femi Oladejo went in the 2nd round. Right now, as of last year, it looked like he should have gone in about the 5th. But he went in the 2nd round. Arvel Reese, elite, a lot of things about him are elite traits. He was really good last year in the field. But there is still with him this, he projects to be this. He could be this. He's on the course to be this. It hasn't been, he is this. Here's the film from college where he is this. And I do wonder if Reese is there, and I don't think he will be. I think that's who the Jets are taking. But if he is, does the Oladejo thing deter Borgonzi and make him look in another direction of a more known commodity?
I don't think so. I don't think it does. And the reason is exactly what you just laid out. Like, we talked about this early in the draft process too. Like Kuharski brought it up, and it's fair to bring up when you've taken Oladejo, who was an off-the-ball linebacker that got converted in his last year of college football to an edge rusher. That's not a whole lot of time playing the position you need him to play at the NFL level. But you saw enough with the tools that he brings to the table that you feel like he can do it. Well, it's basically the same thing with Arvel Reese, except the tools are just a lot better. Like, this is what, Borgonzi last week in his pre-draft press conference. And again, it's a pre-draft press conference. There's only so much you can take away from it that actually means anything. But like, I do think, when Borgonzi says something like this, he's not just throwing it out there. He said Arvel Reese is, quote, one of the more explosive prospects I've ever seen. Has the tools to be a dominant rusher. Like, I understand it's a GM and a pre-draft press conference, but I don't think you just throw that out there unless you actually believe it, right? Like, you don't just, oh, he's one of the most explosive prospects I've ever seen, if you don't actually deep down believe that.
Probably not. Unless
So
he's
I think
trying to fool everybody.
it could be.
Yeah, no, I
Could
think
be.
yeah. There's a difference for sure. Now, what about the character thing? Is that his thing? You know, it's like John Robinson. It was like John Robinson loves to find those banged up players you can get, 50 cents on the dollar. And is Borgonzi too focused on character?
Well, if he is, I guess you better take Chris Brazel off the board, according to Schefter.
I guess, if that's what that sentence meant.
Yeah, I don't know.
He does seem big on character, though.
He seems big on character, but find me the NFL general manager who's like not big on character, right? Like, it just
right. They all talk about it. They all talk about culture.
Here's what I would love to know: are you big on character? Like, how big on character are you when it's one of your best players, right? Like, that's really the test, because I think NFL coaches, NFL general managers put up with a lot of crap from some of these players when the players are really, really good, right? Like, it's, it's easy to move on from fringe guys, particularly guys who you didn't draft, when they're not superstar players if you don't like their character. Right. If you're talking about a guy that you drafted in the first or second round, I think you got a little bit more of a leash there. And look, I'm not going to sit here today and pretend like I remember all the Luther Burden stuff. I don't remember like the character concerns with all that or whatever. But I is that the reason they didn't take Luther Burden and they traded back in the second round and took Femi Oladejo? I have no idea. I couldn't tell you what happened on that front.
Has that been reported, or is that just reported on the YouTube chat?
Yeah, I don't recall seeing that anywhere. So I don't know. I think we're making assumptions about the character part of this because of some of the things that have happened, right? Like, it's a fact. He got rid of, two cornerbacks earlier this year, one of which, Roger McCreary was a good player, but clearly the Titans did not have any interest in re-signing him to another contract.
And there was no character
concerns there whatsoever. Brownlee, from, reading the tea leaves, it didn't feel like his character, his approach, however you want to phrase it, lined up with who they wanted to be and what they wanted to do. So, and that seemed to be, Joe, like the driving reason why they got rid of Jarvis Brownlee.
Right. Brownlee ticked some people off. Some people didn't like working with him. So I think there's no question that was a part of it. Joe Blacko says Rand wasn't big on character. I mean, is that true? I don't know. I mean, obviously, when they got L'Jarius Sneed, I don't remember any reported issues with him other than the knee. Then he got into the thing. He got into the thing with the gun in Dallas, and that, okay, so that changes it. And obviously when he was here, he's just not a very likable guy. But other than that, tell me where, they did, to your point, Robby, on GM's caring, they sent a freaking contingent to Texas to investigate everything that Tavondre Sweat ever said from seventh grade on, including what he wrote in his Trapper Keeper. I mean, so you can't tell me they didn't care about it. They obviously knew that was a question, like his work ethic and does he party too much, whatever, all that stuff. I don't know. Everybody cares about that stuff. Because again, the Titans, they got burned with Isaiah Wilson, even though I believe that a lot of the issues with him were after college. There wasn't a ton about him at Georgia, but they got burned. And so then when you get burned in that way, then it puts even more of a premium on it. But then there's also, it's that sliding scale, like you said, of the talent. And, of course you don't want like an Antonio Brown. You just don't want that situation. But then again, you'll take the first several years of Antonio Brown's career, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think that like Borgonzi is out here putting character way over talent. I mean, I think you're trying to build a good locker room, but I feel like I think with Oladejo it was more projecting that talent, and we'll see. We'll see this year. I mean, this year he could emerge and break through and be like, okay, wow, they did have it right. But it's just that when you saw so little in the first year, you're like, man, what were they seeing?
Alex Doherty from the Tennessean will be with us coming up next. We'll get his thoughts on the end of season press conferences from the Nashville Predators yesterday. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning. We are presented by Green Ventures Landscaping. Property managers, if you manage it, they maintain it. Visit greenventureslandscaping.com. The Predators wrapped up their end-of-season press conferences yesterday. And to help us talk more about the Predators, the offseason coming up, we head to our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in our buddy Alex Doherty from the Tennessean, who covers the Nashville Predators. Alex, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing really good. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you with us. Steven Stamkos making it pretty clear yesterday, Alex, that from the conversations that he's had, he does not anticipate a rebuild or anything like it coming this offseason for the Predators. Now, I heard some Predators fans see that and say, well, how could you possibly know that? They haven't hired a general manager yet. So what does that mean in terms of the direction of how things are all going here? What's your takeaway from Stamkos, what he had to say yesterday about how, hey, the goal next year is they got to push for the playoffs and doesn't sound like any rebuild is coming?
Yeah, we have to take maybe some of this a little lightly because we don't know exactly who they're going to hire and what decisions that person's going to make. But I think it is interesting that they came in as confident as they did, right? So like Stamkos, Forsberg, Yossi to some extent. The younger guys don't really have much to worry about. I don't think they're in danger of being moved away. I mean, they're part of the future core, guys like Evangelista or Wood. But, the keys are, what's going to happen with Stamkos, Marchessault, maybe Yossi, O'Reilly, Saros, all that. So for them to come in yesterday and be pretty confident that there's going to be a new general manager, but, no one's really going anywhere. It's just a different person we're talking to, at the end of the day, is pretty interesting, and you have to wonder, how are they getting that information? I mean, obviously that's probably what Barry is telling them, but then where's Barry getting that information? Barry Trotz is, talking with team ownership, including Bill Haslam. He's talking with probably Nick Saban, who's apparently involved in a lot of the GM decisions now, and probably talking to other members of the hockey operations there. So it's not like it's coming out of nowhere, right? So there's some truth to it, but it is hard to see, going into this summer with a new GM in charge who potentially might have no ties to any of this, just coming in and saying, you know what? I like what I'm seeing, and everything's going really well, and we just need to keep it rolling, and let's go make another free agent signing to push for the playoffs again. It's hard to see that, but it was interesting at how confident they were, and Stamkos especially. He said the word rebuild. You don't see a lot of players or coaches or whoever use that word. He said is there going to be a rebuild? Doesn't sound like that's going to be the case, is what he said. So. That was very interesting to hear yesterday.
Maybe it's like Saban, who's like, he hates the transfer portal. Like, no one's ever going to transfer out of here. I don't know, but no, it is interesting. And I guess the new GM could always come in and it's like, well, the new guy decided to do something different than we anticipated, but it sounds like maybe there's at least some assurance from the top that that they're going to keep this core together. But I guess you just brought up, Alex, it's like there's keeping the core together, which Robby has said, like his plan, because you're not going to be able to move much of the core, right? You can move some, but his idea is then you have opportunities for young guys, and there may be growing pains, and it may not give you the bottom line you want, but at least then you're kind of seeing what you have and you're letting guys grow, as opposed to going, because you're going to have to supplement with veterans here if you really want to, right? Like if you really want to do anything, like there is an in between, right? That maybe can still make these guys happy because they're still together, but also makes this a younger team.
Yeah, I mean, they have painted themselves into a corner that they can't necessarily they can't get out of easily. So, any thought that there would be a complete blow up where all of the major players are gone, including like Stamkos and Marchessault and Shea and Yossi and Saros, all that, like that was never going to happen. There's no there's not enough not enough gravity there to make that happen. But there is a way to get to tweak it enough to maybe correct for one of the mistakes that I think they made, and that was and I know we'll talk about it, but the Jonathan Marchessault thing just has not worked out, and he had his career worst, a career worst last year. I think 37 points or something like that, and I think that it's pretty clear from both sides that he doesn't necessarily want to keep trying this. The team probably doesn't think that it's going to keep working. Could we see a scenario in which Marchessault has moved off and that's still sold as not a rebuild, but just a tweak and push for the playoffs again? I could definitely see that. And I think you could sell that pretty easily, even with the new GM saying, you know what, we're going to make one major change, and then the rest of it, we're ready to go. We're going to keep Brunette. We're going to keep the rest of the players around, maybe add a young player, see what Brady Martin can do. You could sell that, I think, and feel good about it. But does that, how does that work if you have another poor start, right? In November, if the team is 6-10 again, or 6-12 or whatever it was, we're right back where we were for the last 3 or 4 years in a row. And if that happens again, it's like, well, now you've done nothing. You've not changed anything major. You've not made you've changed GMs, but you have the same philosophy. And here we are back again. And you're not going to be then you have to make major changes. So yes, I think there could be tweaks that are sold as a minor change, but could actually do something good for the team in the long run.
Specifically on Marchessault, as you mentioned, it was an interesting press conference with him yesterday. He talked about not being in a good headspace. Eventually I asked him, whether or not he wanted to be here. And I think in the answer, he eventually got around to helping the Preds get back to the playoffs. But watching him answer the question, it was not cut and dry. Yeah. This is where I want to be. What was your takeaway from Jonathan Marchessault yesterday?
I was pretty shocked at how, kind of self-critical he was. He doesn't normally do that a lot. I don't see it anyways. I mean, think about, in the past when things have not gone well for him, I don't want to say he's just blaming others, but he does tend to make some excuses. There was a time where he talked about the line changes. He's had injuries. There've been, he's if you watch him on the ice, I mean, he's always barking about one thing or another. I mean, he's never quiet out there about all the things that have wronged him in a particular moment. But this was a Marchessault that sounded like, I have not done enough to help this team get in the playoffs. I think that was essentially what he said, is that if this team is going to make the playoffs, he's going to have to play better, right? I mean, he's not what he once was. The headspace thing is interesting too. I mean, that can happen in a lot of ways. I mean, we know about his season last year with the death of his mother. I think that took a long time to recover from. He had some injuries. He couldn't really find a line that really worked for him. There was a brief moment where he and Matthew Wood and Forsberg were working well together, but then that kind of dissipated. What struck me yesterday was that he seemed a bit defeated. He seemed a bit like, this was an awful season, and I need to work on how to get back to what I can do. I don't, to your question about, does he want to be back? I feel like there's probably room for him to want to be back, but I just feel like he's not in a good place to play anywhere right now and feel good about his game. I mean, maybe if he was to just be instantly reunited with all the players he was with in Vegas, with Bruce Cassidy and everything, and just magically go back to that time, he could return to that. But I don't see a scenario in which he could go anywhere and just become a 30-goal scorer again. I mean, he just doesn't look like that player. So just really, he's got a lot of room to work on himself this summer and to figure out, how does he get back to being that aggressive, speedy winger that can score 30 goals a year. He just seems very far from that right now.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying earlier, Alex. It's like he is, and other people are looking at all these answers other than he just diminishes a player. And not that this situation has been ideal for him, but I mean, I think that's probably a big part of the reality for him at this point. Let me take it to another question that's kind of apart from. Well, I guess it is a possible move, but it's very unlikely. But in terms of a player being diminished, what's ahead for UC Saros? Is he going to get back to? Can he get back to close to what he was a few years ago?
I mean, it is really hard to see that at this point. I mean, clearly there is something that teams have discovered about playing against him that just he's unable to correct. I mean, we can look at the fact that he's faced the most shots in the league and has had to deal with a lot of traffic in front, and he's definitely diminished in terms of his ability to track the play. I feel like his side to side movement. I mean, the guy is still an athletic goalie. He's still a prime athlete. He's healthy. He seems seems, at least from my perspective, like in a mentally good space. He's not in that bad headspace that Marchessault's in, I don't think. And we saw in the Olympics, he goes out and he plays really well in that game. So on the one hand, you feel like maybe it is something with this defense that's just not working well. But I mean, but then he will allow goals that just do not feel like goals NHL goalies should allow. And then Onanen will step in there and be stopping those shots. And Onanen is a very different type of goalie. He's much bigger. He's more physically imposing. He covers more of the net. I think Saros is we are probably looking at a player who is either going to plateau and just be this level, or or get worse. I don't think we can expect him to return to anything close to what he was 4 years ago. I just, at this point, I don't see it. And do they have to just eat the contract for a while and hope that, one of the recent draft picks like Ivan Kovic or maybe Onanen just steps in and they have more of a dual tandem and split 40 games each? Can you just eat that contract? The price isn't like terrible. It's not like it's going to really hurt you with the cap going up, but it's just a long time to sit there with that guy and a contract you can't move because it's a no move. Yesterday, I tried to get something from him on, what are your thoughts on the changes for there's a new GM coming. What's that look like for you? And he's just like, it didn't really give me much. And he just said, yeah, well, we'll see who the new person is, but I'm ready to move on and just get ready for next year. And it didn't seem like really phased at all by that. So Saros is he is what he is at this point. And that's, I know a lot of people don't want to hear that.
How are we feeling about the Admirals taking on the Manitoba Moose in the AHL playoffs, which we're working on trying to get a live show request for?
Yeah, we need to go up to Major Goolsby's and do a live. You need to do a live show up there for once and for all. Go to a Bucks game, go to a Brewers game, sit down and watch the Admirals take on the Manitoba Moose. Hey, and you never know, maybe Brady Martin will be there. I've heard rumblings that maybe he could sign an ATO there. Maybe Brady Martin will be playing up there. I think the bigger question is, have you all talked about the tattoo, Barry Trotz's tattoo? Have you talked about that?
No, we have not. That has not come up yet. But we did find out that apparently he's got a Predators tattoo on an area that he would not show Alex Doherty yesterday.
Yeah, I just kind of joking asked him if he would show us, and I wasn't expecting him to do that. But I'm wondering what it is. I mean, do we have theories on what it could be? I mean, it could just be it could be the logo. Could it be, I have no idea. Maybe it's a reference to the team somehow. I'm really curious about what this tattoo could be.
The President's Trophy banner?
Maybe.
Maybe he wasn't here for that. Maybe it's a dog with number 14 for Ekholm. Maybe it's
if you're scared, get a dog. That could be what it is.
Yeah. That could be what it is.
Well, we may never know. But glad to confirm yesterday that he does have a tattoo with the Predators. So I like it.
We have to ask the question. It's a tough question. Will you show us your tattoo? We had to ask it, and he declined.
Respectfully declined. Alex, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm sure we'll talk to you here in the coming weeks as the new general manager gets named here at some point, and then it's heavily into the offseason after that. But appreciate your time, buddy, and we'll talk to you soon.
Of course. All right. Talk to you guys later.
All right, Alex Doherty, our guest here on the program. We'll react to what Alex had to say, get into a couple takeaways from the Predators yesterday as they wrapped up their season availability. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game.
Steven, how are you feeling about, I mean, obviously you mentioned it last week, there's a lot of uncertainty with the general manager and what's going to happen, and things have not gone to plan to this point. How are you feeling about where things stand at the moment?
Yeah, again, obviously, that process is ongoing with the new management, team that's going to be assembled here. And I think we just, we had some meetings today, and I think the message was, the expectation is still to be a competitive team and to push for the playoffs. So you know, I don't anticipate any huge changes, right? And we've kind of talked about, is there going to be a rebuild, this, that. I think that's probably safe to say not going to be the case. I think we all want to be part of the solution. Like I said, we saw it for 60 games or 55 games of what the process can look like, and integration of some of the younger guys and the veteran guys, pulling their weight, and obviously the goaltending that we have here is something we can build off of. So there's going to be some changes for sure, but I think the overall message that was portrayed to us today was, let's have a great summer and let's get off to a really good start next year and push for the playoffs, because that's what every team's goal is at the end of the year.
That was Steven Stamkos yesterday. A lot of reaction to that today on the program. Taking your thoughts at 615-737-1025. Joe Stamkos basically saying, look, the goal next year, is from the conversations we've had today, is we're going to make a push for the playoffs, and that the rebuild is not coming. Now, there's a lot of people that, have different thoughts on what that actually means when it comes to the approach this offseason, including, by the way, like, okay, where's this coming from, right? If you're Barry Trotz, you're in all likelihood not going to be the general manager here in a few weeks when the Predators hire whoever they hire as their next general manager. So where's this information coming from? Is it a Bill Haslam thing? Is it an ownership thing? Is it just Barry Trotz saying stuff? Like, what does it all mean? And the way I kind of view it is this, like, I would be surprised if the Predators completely tore it down this offseason, because I think it's really hard to do, as we've discussed. And there are, frankly, some contracts that they have that I just don't know what you can do with them. Like, I don't think Brady Shea's contract's going anywhere. I don't think UC Saros' contract's going anywhere right now. We'll see on the Marchessault front. I also don't think you're going to see the Predators go out there and just go on some free agent frenzy, spending, all this money on a free agent class that's not all that good to begin with, and trying to load up with veterans to get in here and try to make some Stanley Cup push or anything like that. Like, I just don't think that's going to happen. You always leave yourself open for making some trades in the offseason that you feel like can benefit your team. But my guess is, Joe, that you're going to see O'Reilly back to start next year. You're going to see Stamkos back. You're going to see a lot of these veteran guys back to start next year. And how their season goes is going to be almost completely determined by, one, how good are those veteran guys next year, but two, how much of a jump do you see from some of these younger guys who I think will be in the lineup by the time October rolls around?
Yeah, unless the new GM comes in and let's go on a buying spree and a bad free agency class. Yeah, it's interesting. The more I think about this, it's like no one's going to tell these guys, we plan to suck next year, and look, Bill Haslam, Sean Henry, while these young guys are coming along, while these two timelines are, coming together, they would definitely rather have a couple playoff hockey games at Bridgestone next spring than not. So it's like, I got this text. By the way, I'm in the text line again. Thank you, Chase McCabe.
Good.
So stop saying nasty things about me in the text line. But my personal text line is an interesting point here. So if the people hiring the GM believe a rebuild isn't necessary, then the group will be looking for a GM that confirms their beliefs. A GM that says the best path is to trade the older players won't be hired. But my response to that is like, I think people look at this like it's either this or it's this. It's either all in or it's blow it up, and you can't blow it up. So really, the in-between approach is basically forced here, barring some really surprising developments, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to have these guys. There's still some very good players in that group. They're old. They're older. They're still very good. Ryan O'Reilly had what I hope he considers the second good year of his career. It's the second best of his career.
We'll have to ask him.
Yeah. That'd be good. That question needs to be asked. Where the hell is your tattoo, Barry Trotz? I mean, that information needs to be delivered to the public. But Stamkos obviously had a tremendous year. Forsberg is still, you're talking about 240 goal scorers. Yossi, kind of an encouraging. He's going. He's getting older, but there's some good players. Like it's like they're not gonna be horrific, right? You might move Marchessault, whatever. You might be able to make a couple moves, but I think the in between is the reality, and I guess it's just a question of can these old guys be? Are they okay with a largely young lineup with them? Do they believe that can win enough to get in the playoffs?
615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll take your thoughts on the Predators. So you heard Stamkos' comments about doesn't look like a rebuild is coming. We'll take your thoughts on your interpretation of that, what needs to happen with the Predators this offseason. We'll get into some comments from Jonathan Marchessault, all that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Today, Vanderbilt baseball taking on Xavier at Hawkins Field. First pitch at 6 o'clock. Catch all the action on 102.5 The Game. Coverage presented by Gary Force Acura. Robby and Rexrode here on 102.5 The Game, taking your thoughts on the Predators at 615-737-1025. One texter says, players wouldn't know anything about the outlook after Trotz yet. Ownership wouldn't tell players anything that may paint themselves into a box. I'm hopeful they at least trade 2 of our best players and maybe 3 or 4 this summer or at next trade deadline. Stamkos, Marchessault, and maybe O'Reilly, Forsberg, Yossi, or Saros. This from Lauren on the text line. Well, they're not moving all those guys. I can go ahead and tell you that's not going to happen between now and next trade deadline. And again, some of those guys have contracts where, number one, they've got control over it, or number two, the number is just going to make it really hard to move some of those guys. I mean, O'Reilly is interesting. I think that's probably in the short term, Joe, the most interesting thing here with the new GM coming in is you have O'Reilly, who I still think has a lot of trade value and that teams around the league would be very interested in this offseason. You also have the opportunity, and I think that he would be open to this, to signing a contract extension to Ryan O'Reilly this offseason if you want to, if you're this next GM. And it's not going to be anything that's overly expensive. Frankly, with the cap going up the way that it is, you could probably, if I had to guess, land him for right around the same deal that he just got. It doesn't necessarily have to have 4 years on it, but the $4.5 million term, I think you could absolutely land somewhere in that ballpark again with Ryan O'Reilly. So I mean, that to me is an interesting decision. Now that you didn't trade him this last deadline, there will be interest in him again this offseason. Frankly, if you don't sign him to an extension this offseason, there will be interest in him again coming up in the deadline when it comes to, at that point, what will be an expiring contract for Ryan O'Reilly. So what the new general manager decides to do on the O'Reilly front is probably in the short term one of the most interesting things about this offseason.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, look, and if you tell that to Stamkos, that it's possible that he's gone, that it's a completely different outlook.
Yeah.
And he has to know that, like, just that one move is probably the fulcrum of the whole thing. What a great word.
Nice word.
Fulcrum. Thank you. So you're right. That changes things for sure. And that's where you get into, look, they're just going to be young and go through some pain. And I get that these guys don't want to go through that pain. I totally understand it. Texter here says, big fan of the show. Thank you. And agree you can't tear the Preds down due to contracts, but being realistic, how close are we really to being a competitive playoff team, like a team that could make it past the first round? And if we're close, how many moves are we away from that? I fear it's further than I'd like to admit. See, this is the problem for me, is that not close. There aren't moves. I don't think there are moves, like in terms of, we talk about free agency. Now, again, we can talk about offer sheeting Robertson, or you can talk about a trade that we can't, that could materialize or something like that. But no, I think that you're like this thing that Stamkos is talking about is basically, okay, so they start out okay next year and they're the same type of team, and they get into the playoffs and they're a significant underdog in the first round. Like, that's probably what they are. The problem is, once some of these young guys really get to where you want them to be, now some of these old guys are just too old. And then what do you do? There's just so little in the middle,
Well, do any of these guys get fast-tracked? To me, that's the answer to the question. If, how good is Matthew Wood next year? If, he had a pretty good rookie year, does he take that to a way higher level next year? Well, if so, that changes your team. Is Brady Martin ready to play in the NHL next year? And not only is he ready to play, is he ready to play and be an actual contributor in the NHL that, really helps your team? Well, if so, that changes things. Now, the answer to all those things may not be what you want them to be in the timeline that you're trying to fit it in. And I don't know. I don't know how much of a jump next year Matthew Wood is going to take. I would assume it's at least going to be some, right? Is Brady Martin ready to play? I can't answer that right now as we sit here on April the 21st. But if you're looking for the quickest path to being a team that is, once again, not only a playoff team, but a team that actually has a chance to maybe do something in the playoffs, well, it's going to come down to I hate to say as simple as those two guys because it's not as simple as those two guys, but those two guys are going to be a big part of it, right? Like it's going to require Matthew Wood to be really good, and it's going to require, Brady Martin sooner rather than later to be an impactful player at the NHL level. And if he can do that while Stamkos is still Steven Stamkos and while Forsberg is still Philip Forsberg, and maybe the last part of Yossi's career here, well, then you may have something at that point. But if that doesn't happen, they're pretty far away. Like that's the simple truth of it. It depends almost entirely on these young guys and how quickly they can get themselves not only to being NHL players, but to being key NHL contributors.
Yeah, and then again, you can also you can go out and you can maybe make it. And again, it's like can the Preds, is it possible to make a trade for someone who has a lot of years left?
Yeah.
I mean, that's because you're obviously very old with your top scorers. I mean, you're very old. Relative to the rest of the league, can you bring in somebody else who maybe just for whatever reason? I know we used to talk about like Trevor Zegras a lot, right? Guys like someone in that vein where it's like maybe it's not working out where they are, but you could reimagine in a different place. You could have a lot of years of being a key part of a lineup.
Yeah, and a lot of people have brought this up today, and I understand the point. I don't know that I fully agree with it. It says even an average start this year, you'd be in the playoffs. So next year, get off to, just not a terrible start. I agree with all that. Is it going to be the same thing to make the playoffs next year in the Western Conference? Like that's a part of this entire discussion that I feel like has been under discussed in all this. Like the Western Conference, frankly, kind of sucked this year, right? Like it wasn't very good. I mean, the top of it was good. I mean, they have, potentially the best team in the Western Conference when it comes to Colorado, and I like Dallas and I like Minnesota, and there are some good teams in the Western Conference. But the bottom line is we're talking about a conference where, look, I've seen like 95, 96 points sometimes not be enough to get you in. And this year you would have been in comfortably, right? Like, so it just, is that going to be what it is next year? Does it go? And by the way, like this whole thing's going to change next year. There are 2 more games. So you're playing 84 games next year, not 82. So like your point totals that you're going to have to get to are going to change. But let's take a normal year in an 82 game season. It's probably going to require, 94, 95, 96 points to get in somewhere in that neighborhood. Well, extrapolate that out to 84. Well, then you're probably, Joe, looking at 96, 97, 98 just to get in. Can this team do that? Because that's probably what you're going to have to do to get in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's something to keep in mind. It's a normal year. If you have balanced conferences and it's a normal year, then really the last few weeks we're already having these conversations because they're not even really, they're on the very fringe of the race. So you're probably not going to have that luxury a year from now. I mean, who knows? I mean, it's a lot of these teams have questions that could go either way, but just for the way things normally work out, this was an outlier.
A lot of people talking about Porter Martone today. Very upset that Porter Martone is out there lighting it up right now. But look, again, he would have been a good pick. We talked about that at the time. Like Porter Martone's going to be a good player in the NHL. I do think let's see what Brady Martin turns into. It's a nice run for Porter Martone right now. I think Porter Martone's going to be a good player. There is still time on the Brady Martin front where he could work out pretty nicely for you. So I wouldn't jump off the boat just yet.
Yeah, it's totally understandable to watch him and say, "Oh my goodness, look at this kid." But to assess right now that it was a miss, like this texture miss in all caps of drafting Brady Martin.
Yeah, we have no idea yet.
You don't know. We don't know.
And by the way,
Brady
as
Martin
good
was
as
not
Porter
supposed to be
Martone
playing
has looked,
this year.
Yeah, what does Porter Martone play in the NHL? Like 10 games? Like
Right.
let's dial it back a little bit. Yeah, he's scoring important goals in the playoffs right now. And look, I've said it all along. He's going to be a good player. I like Porter Martone, but I think Brady Martin might be a pretty good player too. We'll see what happens on that front. As another texter has pointed out, there is a low percentage chance that you could win the draft lottery, get that number 1 pick, and then you got Gavin McKenna you could be adding to the fold next year, Joe. So you're telling me there's a chance?
Hey, Was it 3.5? Is that correct? Is that
I think
accurate?
it's somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't remember the exact percentage, but that sounds about right.
Well, that'd be nice. They did get bad luck last year, so they were in position. When you're the third worst and you draft fifth. Is that what it was? Third
That's
worst
correct.
draft fifth. Yeah, they're owed a little bit of of a bump at least this year.
3.5% is right. That is the percentage.
Unless the league is actively conspiring against the Preds, as some believe.
Could be. You want that theory to take some life? Have Toronto win this draft lottery. Who is I think fifth? They're fifth right now in the draft order. 8.5% chance. Have Toronto win the draft lottery.
Oh my goodness!
Be a lot of thoughts on that.
You would never silence it if that happens. Never.
Or here, I'll throw another one at you. Have Florida win the draft lottery at number 8. That'd be something.
Yeah, I mean that would
in between their march to Stanley Cups, you're just getting Gavin McKenna.
That would be ridiculous. But then my question would be, why do they care? Like, do they even want Florida ever winning a cup? You know what I mean? So the Toronto though would be like, oh God, like Chicago, for example. How about my Red Wings? Can we get some conspiracy on their behalf?
Well,
that'd be nice, right? We still going to have to pay for being the Yankees 30 years ago?
Unfortunately for the Red Wings, they do not have a chance at the number 1 overall pick. So
I know.
It's a tough one.
That is too bad. The absolute worst place you could be.
Some comments from Jonathan Marchessault that we'll get into coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. The Game Nashville Sports Network will have coverage of the NFL Draft live this Thursday from T-Line Nashville and on Friday from Chicago's home of Chicken and Waffles. Coverage beginning at 6 o'clock on Thursday on 102.5 The Game, and on Friday, Sports Talk 8:30, presented by Parmid Tractor and Equipment, Pizzona MD, Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery, Sealmaster, and Tri-State Water, Power, and Air Home Generators. Final segment of the day, Robby and Rexrode, taking your thoughts on the Predators, 615-737-1025. Interesting stuff from Jonathan Marchessault yesterday. He talked about, not being in a good headspace this year. He had, by his words, the worst year of his NHL career. And I asked him, hey, do you want to be here? Like, is this a place you want to be? Have you had discussions about being moved? Here's what Jonathan Marchessault had to say on that front.
Do you want to be here as part of the solution moving forward? Have you had conversations about moving elsewhere? Like, kind of where has that stood over the last few months?
Yeah, I mean, it's an unbelievable group of guys here. That's one thing I'll tell you. I want to be around those guys, and I want to be playing playoff games. But I'm aware that if I play the way I played like this year, I'm not going to bring anything to the playoffs. So I think you got to look at yourself in the mirror. There's guys that made a difference this year, and there's guys that didn't make a difference, and I didn't make a difference this year. So, I want to take ownership towards that and look at myself in the mirror and help the Preds get to a playoff team.
So that was Jonathan Marchessault yesterday. He had to say.
Well, first of all, I take issue a little bit with the idea of I was in a bad headspace for an entire year, And again, that was last year, wasn't it? Wasn't that last year? You're in a bad headspace last year, you're in a bad headspace this year. Well, get out of the bad headspace. Or are you just not as good as everyone hoped you would be? And you have brought up the point, and it's very fair. He has not been in great situations. He has not been consistently with a center who can create enough for him. He had a much better situation in Vegas, but I just that falls flat to me a little bit with the headspace stuff. And I just think a lot of the response there was dancing around this, whatever you want to call it, if it's a rift or just a philosophical disagreement. It doesn't work, I think, with Andrew Burnett and Jonathan Marchessault on some level.
Yeah.
So, because he made a point. I love the guys. He's talked before about how much he loves Nashville. And as someone texted in earlier, hey, Barry Trotz's retirement village, you're going great here, because he's just not the same player.
Yeah, I do think, it makes all the sense in the world if you're the Predators to try to move on from Marchessault this offseason. It does. Now, I have no idea whether or not they're going to be able to do it, but I think from both sides, it makes a lot of sense to try to move on and start somewhere else. I am interested. Let's say that happens. Number one, I'd be interested to see where it is. And number two, what does their situation at center look like in terms of the year that Marchessault could have next year? I don't think he's ever getting back to being a 40-goal scorer. I do legitimately still believe that if paired with the right guy, that he could be a 50-something point player that scores 20, 25 goals a year, for the next couple of years. I think he could do that. But is he going to do that here? I don't know. It's as Alex brought up earlier, it felt like for about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, that he, with Forsberg and Matthew Wood, found something. Marchessault started to play, far and away the best hockey of the year this year that he had played. And then toward the end of the year, Joe, it just kind of fell off again. And it was he's just out there and not much is going on when he's out there. So I don't know what that's going to mean for him moving forward. Chris points this out on the text line. And as I was in the media scrum asking the question, I felt the same thing. I asked him straight up if he wanted to be here, and it kind of felt like there's some hesitation there, right?
Yes.
And he wasn't willing to, he didn't go out there and say no, but he wasn't over enthusiastically saying, yeah, this is absolutely where I want to be. I think there's real real benefit on both sides to looking to seeing if you can move on this offseason.
Yeah. Jacob Smith in the YouTube chat says Marchessault over Duchesne. Trotz leaves and we make that move. Bring Duchesne back. How about that? I love it.
Yeah, that'd be something.
That would be something.
He'd be happy. I mean, I say that. I mean, things going pretty well in Dallas for Matt Duchesne, so he probably should stay there.
Yes, but he loves Nashville.
He does.
Everybody loves Nashville.
Yeah, that's a good look. You know, people joke about that. That's not a bad thing. Like that's a
right. Sure.
That is something that you should be able to use to your advantage if you're this organization and make the right decisions on that front. Like players liking where your NHL team is and liking to live there should not be a bad thing. So that's on the organization moving forward to make sure that more of those players work out.
It's not a bad thing. It's a big part of why they got him in 2019. And obviously it didn't work out at all the way everybody was hoping it would work out, even though
big part of why Steven Stamkos is here too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that should work to your advantage.
It should. We will see what happens on that front. We got a lot to get into on the NFL draft front tomorrow. Paul Kuharsky will be with us in the second half of the program. That's going to do it for us today here on the show. Next Man Up with Jake Lyman is coming up next. You're listening to 102.5 The Game.